this wonderful explanation, and thank you everybody. Now I request ARUP, ARUP Jyoti Sharma. Dr. Sharma has been teaching in the Department of Philosophy at Tripura Central University since 2010, and he obtained his PhD degree from JNU in 2010. His area of interest include ethics and Western philosophy, and he has published a recent book. The title of the book is Kant's Moral Faith. It is published by Motilal Banarsi Das in 2024. And also he have completed an MRP, minor research project, funded by ICPR in 2017, and he has published. He is a good scholar in Kant, Hegel. Today he will be presenting a paper on knowledge and reality gulf, Hegel against Kant. In Equation seminar in Guwahati meet, we heard about the presentation of Professor R.N. Singh about Hegel and Kant. It is very difficult that how Hegel solves the problem in Kant. And let us listen Arup's position on that. Thank you, Arup, please.
So, a very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, let me thank Principal, Madam, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. So, Madam has been in contact for many months, and I'm really looking forward to this seminar. It is altogether kind of a different experience altogether. The moment I reached here yesterday until today. So I'm really very happy the things are happening here. So thank you once again, Madam. Thank you also our chairperson, sir, and all the respected dignitaries. So today I would like to speak on knowledge and reality divide that Kant has made. He has contrasted between knowledge and reality, and how Hegel has tried to solve this dichotomy. And in a process, I will also see how much Hegel is justified in his criticism to Kant, because that is an additional thing, and that would be probably my contribution to it. Because the way Hegel has criticized, somewhere I feel that, probably Hegel has not properly understood him, or that is my opinion about it. So let me begin the paper in this way, that Kant actually, he limits knowledge, as we know, that to the domain of phenomenon, and as he rightly says in the critique of the preface to the critique of pure reason, that I limit knowledge to phenomenon in order to make room for faith. So Kant's synthetic a priori knowledge is basically, it is grounded by sensibility, which has its two a priori forms that we know, space and time, and they are organized by the categories of understanding. So in a way, what we are having in this process is the synthetic a priori knowledge, and that synthetic a priori knowledge is possible in the domain of phenomenon, leaving aside the unknown domain of the thing in itself. Now, Hegel has said that as long as the thing in itself lies outside the domain of human cognition, then there is the dichotomy or the gap between the appearance and the objective reality, or the subjectivity and the objective reality. And when we look at in both these philosophers, Kant and Hegel, then we found that both these philosophers have given importance to the faculty of reason. But the way Kant has used reason is in the form, reason is the critical reason that he is talking about in the critique of pure reason. So what is critical about it? What is critical about this reason? So critical reason is basically to curb the limitations of human knowledge. That means human knowledge cannot go up to any extent. So it can go only within the domain of sensibility and understanding, that is within the structured sensibility and understanding, and gives in this process the synthetic a priori knowledge. So beyond that, wherever our knowledge has a limit, and beyond that there opens the area of the fate. So everything is obviously not possible for us to know. That is what Kant has said, and opens the room for speculative reason, where Kant is talking about the transcendental ideas. So what he has referred to, basically the three domains, that is the freedom of freedom of the will, immortality of the soul, and the existence of God. So these are outside the domain of human knowledge, and that lies in the domain of the fate. So in fate, reason is guided, and that reason is basically the practical reason. And here in Critique of Pure Reason, reason is the pure reason. In morality or in religion, Kant is talking about reason is more in the practical. So the practical reason, practical is more in the form of normativity that he is talking about. But in pure reason, pure reason means basically it talks about the limitations of human knowledge, how far knowledge can go. Because the basic question is, how is synthetic a priori knowledge possible? So synthetic a priori knowledge is possible within the spatio-temporal structure, and which are also organized by the categories of understanding. Beyond that, our knowledge will not work. But in that reason that that Kant is talking about, it is in the form of a dichotomy. The same reason Hegel is also talking about. But here, reason is in the role of unification. It has the unifying role, because it is very, very significant, because the time that we see in Kant was born in 1724 and he died in 1784, and Hegel was born in 1770 and he died in 1831. So Hegel was, in a sense, Hegel and Kant were almost contemporary, though Hegel came later than Kant. So he was aware of, and he was very much actually influenced by Kant's philosophy, but he says that the reason which is in the form of a dichotomy in Kant, here reason is in the form of an unifying role. So he says that whatever is rational is also real, and what is real is also rational. So that reason does not create a dichotomy, reason rather tries to solve the dichotomy. And this is actually really very, very interesting in Hegel. Now, let me go to the critique of pure reason, that Kant talks about this dichotomy a little bit. He divides the critique of pure reason into two: transcendental doctrine of elements and the transcendental doctrine of matter. Transcendental doctrine of elements is further divided into transcendental aesthetic and transcendental logic. Now, the transcendental aesthetic, Mauser has rightly said, it has nothing to do with aesthetics. That Kant is talking about aesthetics in the critique of judgment. That is not a thing. Here, Kant is basically interested to talk about the human sensibility, the a priori forms of human sensibility. So, transcendental logic is further divided into transcendental analytic and transcendental dialectic. Now, transcendental analytic gives us these 12 categories of understanding, and we have the transcendental dialectic. So, transcendental dialectic is again, in a sense, that is outside the domain of human knowledge. Now, transcendental aesthetic and transcendental analytic together gives us the synthetic a priori knowledge in Kant. Now, though Kant says that that we do not have any knowledge about say the freedom of the will or the immortality of the soul or the existence of God, but he says that these are from our practical consideration, from the consideration of morality, we say that it has also a very significant role. So he says that in the transcendental dialectic, Kant criticizes systematically any attempt to apply the categories outside the field of experience. His general argument is that whenever one attempts to do this, one is led into error, contradiction, and paradox. Now, he says that we can have this immanent metaphysical knowledge of synthetic a priori principles that structure all possible human experience because they are grounded in our pure forms of sensible intuition, space and time, and the pure concepts of our understanding, the categories. But Kant's argument for this immanent metaphysics rests on his claim that human knowledge can result only from applying concepts to intuitions, or more precisely to schemata, mediating the application of concepts to appearances. This key claim implies that transcendent metaphysical knowledge, knowledge of objects that transcend the boundaries of possible human experience, is impossible for us, since it will involve deploying concepts independently of intuition or schemata. In fact, this is what Kant wants to establish in the transcendental analytic, the possibility of synthetic a priori knowledge in the phenomenal domain, leaving aside the unknown domain of things as they are in themselves. However, Kant in the transcendental dialectic also argues that transcendent metaphysics is not only possible but also actual. He wants to establish the position that we can have a priori knowledge about three transcendent objects in particular, that is the human soul, the world whole, and God. This is one of Kant's main goals in the dialectic, which he pursues mainly in Book 2, to have found arguments for transcendent metaphysical claims. But although Kant holds that humans can have knowledge about non-empirical reality, he does not deny that the existence of such a reality is a legitimate topic of human concern. On the contrary, he believes that there are three specific topics of rationalist metaphysics that are legitimate and inevitable topics of human concern. These are God, human immortality, and human freedom. Kant's position with respect to these topics is that although we cannot know whether God exists, whether there is an immortal human soul, or whether humans have free will, we may believe in God, immortality and freedom. Furthermore, for the purpose of action and morality, we ought to believe in them, despite the fact that there is no way we can know whether these beliefs are true. He argues that whereas we must admit that our knowledge extends only as far as the limits of experience, still there are more grounds for believing in God, immortality and freedom. As Kant puts it in a famous sentence, as I have already said, that I have found it necessary to deny knowledge in order to make room for faith. This leads Kant to show that pure reason must not be merely a source of speculative fallacies, but must also have a positive use. In point of fact, Kant argues that the positive use of pure reason is twofold. On the one hand, he argues in an appendix to the transcendental dialectic, reason's ideas of the unconditioned give rise to indispensable regulative principles for the conduct of scientific inquiry, and on the other hand, he argues in the canon of pure reason, in the doctrine of matter, reason also gives rise to the unconditionally valid moral law as a prescription of how the world ought to be rather than a description of how it actually is. Now, Hegel is actually offering certain criticisms to Kant. He says that he wants to set aside Kantian dichotomy between knowledge and reality. He argues that our knowledge is not restricted or limited, or that we cannot have knowledge of the things as they are in themselves. Hegel seeks to show that there are real things or real aspects of the world which can be known only by going beyond Kant's limits, and to show that we ourselves have access to this knowledge or knowledge of things as they are in themselves. Hegel is particularly critical of subjectivism and formalism of Kant's theoretical philosophy. According to him, the essence of the Kantian philosophy consists in its critical idealism. It plainly confesses that its principle is subjectivism and formal thinking. Kantian philosophy is subjective because even though we can think of thing in itself, yet our synthetic a priori knowledge is confined to the boundaries of sensibility only, and sensibility is the a priori condition of our mind. Again, Kant's philosophy is considered to be formal thinking because Kant's insistence that whether in the case of the pure intuitions of sensibility or the pure concepts of the understanding, we can have a priori knowledge only for the pure forms of representation, the abstract structures of intuition, judgment and reasoning, and must always wait upon experience for completion of the knowledge of particulars, which is for that reason never entirely a priori. While dealing with Hegel's criticism against Kant, I shall try to argue in favor of its philosophical merit. Hegel no doubt places some of the important criticisms against Kant, but sometimes it reveals that his criticisms are only external. Hegel does not engage in internal criticism of Kant's theoretical philosophy. He does not experiment that Kant's basic philosophical principles are unsound, or that his conclusions do not follow validly from these basic principles. He is rather concerned about the views that Kant's conclusion falls short of his own philosophical expectations. A detailed account of some of his criticisms are I'm just referring to. The first criticism is like this, that the opposition that Hegel objects to under the frame of subjectivism is Kant's contrast between appearances and things in themselves. Kant's claim is that although we can and indeed must be able to coherently think of things in themselves, we can have a priori and empirical knowledge only of appearances. Hegel in the lectures on the history of philosophy argues that the subject of knowledge in Kant does not arrive at reason. It is merely an empty form of thought. According to him, knowledge, Kantian epistemology lies within the realm of subjectivity, and the external reality rests outside the domain of knowledge. So Hegel says that these heterogeneous elements, that is the subject which is the particular and in the form of being, and the predicate which is the universal and in the form of thought, are absolutely identical. It is reason alone that is the possibility of this positing of identity in judgment, for reason is nothing else but the identity of heterogeneous elements of this kind. Given this interpretation, Hegel thinks that Kant should have been led by the concept of judgment directly to his own conception of rationality as the recognition of the fundamental identity of being and thought. He believes that the nature of our thought and reality that Kant has contrasted are one and the same, because the true objectivity of thinking means that thought, far from being ours, must at the same time be the real essence of the things and of whatever is an object for us. Secondly, Hegel's criticism that Kant's philosophy is formal thinking is also linked up with this criticism of subjectivity. He points out that the problem with Kantian categories is that they are merely empty forms of thought that need to be filled up. But when they are filled up with materials from outside, they will be filled with empirical data that cannot reveal things in themselves. A key point of this objection is a complaint against the contingency of the application of the categories to any particular empirical data. Hegel objects to the fact that although our use of just such and such so many categories might be necessary in itself, there is no necessity that our categories apply to just these and no other particulars given by sensation. Thus, that these categories apply to just these particular empirical intuitions is something that Kant leaves quite contingent. Hegel has vehemently criticized Kantian dichotomy between the categories and the thing in itself. He points out that in Kantian philosophy, the origin of sensation must be left to the action of the things in themselves on our sensibility. Since we cannot cognize the things in themselves, the origin of sensation is therefore incomprehensible to us. In this way, Hegel points out that in Kantian philosophy, there is a gulf. On the one hand, a synthetic a priori knowledge, and on the other hand, the things in themselves. Such knowledge becomes abstract or formal without its involvement in the objective reality. Thirdly, that besides Hegel's criticism of subjectivity and formalism of Kant's critical philosophy, he is also critical of Kant's nature of knowledge. He argues that Kant makes knowledge into an instrument for the coercion of truth, but the question arises how this instrumental knowledge can be applied to something which is incomprehensible to us. In describe this point in Hegel's own words that appear in his lectures on the history of philosophy. Now, this criticism of Hegel against Kant's nature of philosophy is more serious and sound. If knowledge is an instrument whereby we attempt to possess the truth, it follows that knowledge is applied to something which is part of the concept of an instrument. The spheres and states Hegel talks about are metaphors for Kant's categories, which are in turn a priori conditions of knowledge. Hegel asserts that it is paradoxical to set up conditions of knowledge which make knowledge impossible. An instrument is not an instrument unless it has a proper application to something. Therefore, Hegel says that knowledge which makes reality as it is in itself unknowable is really no knowledge at all. The instrument model shows Kant's epistemology to be self-refuting in a new sense, a theory of knowledge which asserts that knowledge is possible and yet makes knowledge is conceptual impossibility is self-contradictory. Thus, throughout our discussion of Hegel's criticism of Kant, we have seen that Hegel wants to set aside what is dichotomous in Kant, it is appearance and thing in itself, or more appropriately, knowledge and reality. Hegel thinks that, like him, Kant can propose an all-inclusive reality that resolves all antagonisms. He says that the concept of an idea of an intuitive intellect or a divine intellect, which is precisely the idea of Kant, can overcome not only the opposition between thought and being, but also the opposition between theoretical and practical reason. But Hegel has pointed out that Kant glimpses but refuses to admit the identity of thought and being in his discussion of an idea of an intuitive intellect. Kant refers to such an intellect in the Critique of Judgment, which introduces this intuitive understanding as an idea to which we can contrast the nature of our own understanding in order to bring out its limitations. Now, the thing is that how far Hegel is successful in criticizing Kant with regard to this appearance and reality dichotomy, or the subject and the object. Yes, though when we look at the critique of purism, then it's, it talks about this dichotomy, and Hegel is pretty right in criticizing Kant. But if we look at the other writings of Kant, particularly say in the Critique of Judgment, Kant is talking about the beautiful and the sublime. So here he is, in a sense, does not make any contradiction that he has made the contradiction in the Critique of Purism. So here the beautiful and the sublime are both knowable. There is nothing unknowable there in the, when you look at, in the Critique of the Judgment. It is through the reflective power, because there in the Critique of Judgment, Kant talks about the reflective power of judgment, which is teleological in nature, that tries to bridge the dichotomy between the theoretical and the practical reason, which is there in his overall Critique of Pure Reason. And Hegel is right only from the point of view of his Critique of Pure Reason that Kant has made the distinction. But in other writings, particularly in the Critique of Judgment, he has not made such a dichotomy. And also when we go to the religion, Kant's religion, because Kant's knowledge within the bounds of sense, there also, particularly when we are referring to the divine command, so we are getting the command from the higher or the supernatural authority, and we are following it in the phenomenal domain. So ultimately, both the phenomenal and the nominal are united in terms of religion that Kant is talking about. So this dichotomy also doesn't arise in religion and also in the Critique of Judgment. So Hegel is right only where the Critique of Pure Reason is concerned about this dichotomy, but not in other writings. This is my findings, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, Professor Mao, please.
Well, since your specialization, if I'm not mistaken, is in Kant, no? So the minor mistake that we have committed is that Kant died in 1774. That is wrong. He died 1804.
Yeah, 1724 to 1804.
Yeah, but you said 1774. That is wrong. Said, and then Hegel, what is that?
1770 to 1831 is Hegel.
1804, which you did not mention. You said that 1774, no? Died, you mentioned. So that is the mistake I'm saying.
No. Kant's time is 1724 to 1804.
Yeah, 1804.
1804.
Yeah.
And Hegel's time is 1770 to 1831.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That's right. So here again, Kant, as I was saying in the morning, Kant has smuggled in the zeitgeist of his time, that is the religious dictum prevalent in his time was that belief and you will know, not Cartesian doubt and you will know. So that had influenced Kant, and he smuggled into the back door of even his practical reason the immortality of the soul and the existence of God as postulated. Of course, the freedom is yes, that is all right, but the other two are not at all necessary. And that is where, although Hegelian understanding of God is also very different, not the traditional sense of God. Okay? Hegel. And Hegel has brought in the reason into the institutionalized form, both the reason and also the freedom into the institutional form, and that's how Hegel has made Germany as the best realizer of these two. You see? And that is where it has indirectly influenced Hitler of the Aryan faith between the two. You see? But that is also not at all necessary for Kant.
Okay, this is clear. Addition to the clarification. Scholars, research scholars, yeah. Scholars, anything comes to your mind in reference to Kant and Hegel, anything. You people are the future of our country.
We look forward to your contribution.
I just want one clarification of, see, while talking about epistemology knowledge, Kant is, I think, limiting his knowledge while saying that noumena is unknown and unknowable. But Hegel, on the other hand, when he is making a comment that real is rational, rational is real, is expanding, expansion of reason. So on the one hand, Kant is limiting reason, and Hegel is expanding reason. So how do you is this the gulf that you wanted to bridge off? Is this the gulf or something like that?
Yeah, actually.
Then you can sit here.
Yeah, Mausam is also quite right about this institutionalized illusion that Hegel is talking about, because Hegel is talking about the institution, and he says that it is the Formgeist, or you can say the Geist. So Geist is in the social form, and particularly suppose the family. Suppose in his book Philosophy of Right, he talks about a family, civil society, and a state. So the highest form is the state. So the state is that where we have the moral rules, moral norms and obligations. And as a human being, we are part and parcel of, and also have the duty to participate in these moral, that laws and institutions which are there in the state. So the state is also in the form of an institution, just like the family is also in the state, in the form of an institution. Because Hegel, as Sir has rightly pointed out, that he is talking about in an institutionalized form of the social structure, like the female family, civil society, and the state, and the state
of politics.
Yes, and yes, this is actually the gulf that that Hegel wants to overcome through reason. In a sense, reason is limiting, and on the other hand, reason is not expanding, but yeah, it has its own horizon, different horizon. So that horizon is a social horizon. So it is in the form of a social institution. The reason is found in the social institutions and our obligations to it.
Okay. Thank you, Arup. Wonderful paper, deeply philosophical and instigated paper. Thank
From
you.
Hegelian point of view, India is a very, very backward society. Because at institutional level, religion in India has not emerged at all from Hegel's standpoint.
Sir, there is a beautiful article, Hegel's analysis on Bhagavad Gita. I think it is written by Professor Aditya Prasad or somehow. Hegel's counter to Bhagavad Gita. And if you go through that article, Hegel will not, I think, I will not agree with Hegel.
But from the realization of freedom and the reason into one culmination acme or epitome, I think he is right about India. A highly superstitious society.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Namita ji, for giving me this response. Thank you.